Good on you, Jared. Well, 12 months ago, Michael Firrito's career was seemingly over. Tonight, he joins us as special guest on the couch. Just 1 week remains, one big question to answer. Who gets the final spot in the 8? We'll address that and much, much more right throughout the program. Hello, welcome along to On the Couch following round 22. 1 week to go, and Jason Dunstall and Mike Sheen are with us again. Mike, this reminds me of 1985, when 87 in fact, when the Demons triumphed.
Fairy tale story then. Melbourne got in, with your help actually, that day, got into the finals for the first time in 23 years, and Richmond is the parallel this time round. But the difference is the Tigers are there, Jared.
It's theirs to lose, Mike.
And the difference is no one's going to help them get in. They've got to do it themselves.
That's true.
When you delivered that goal for the Hawks, did you understand what ramifications it was going to unfold?
No, we were just trying to beat Geelong down at Geelong.
Yeah, and you came from behind. Every position in the 5 changed that day.
Did it?
Yep, every position.
I'll never forget the euphoria in that rooms out at the Whitten Oval when the Demons prevailed. I mean, it was unbelievable. And it'll be similar scenes in Sydney at ANZ Stadium if, in fact, the Tigers can get up. Before we have a look at all the permutations, Jason, what do you like over the weekend?
I saw 2 of the kicks of the season on Saturday afternoon, Jared, at Etihad Stadium. The first was Trent McKenzie. And make no mistake, that's a 60-metre dart that barely gets above head height and just carried everyone and set up a 4-8 forward. Then young Timmy Sumner just went, how about this for a square up? The little banana.
Yes, that's clever.
That is a really
the McKenzie one is consistent, isn't it? Like, that's what the left foot is. That's the natural advantage of a left foot.
That's something that, you know how they talk about breaking the lines? He kicks over the lines.
He does.
I saw a guy that I think is one of the recruits of the year, Shane Mumford, for the GWS. He was by far, in my view, BOG. A lot of people didn't vote for him. He had 168 rankings points. He was incredible, and he has been exactly what this group needs. He's a leader. He's not there for the superannuation check. He is giving everything, and I think if he had stayed on the ground the whole time instead of getting a rest, then he may well have got them across the line. And his season has been great as well. He's missed a couple of games, but if you have a look at his rankings points, he is right up there with the preferred nomination.
It'll be interesting to see who gets in the All-Australian out of those rugby.
There'll be 2 in the All-Australian
team. It has to be this year.
Do you think it'll be him? Do you think he'll be one of them?
I don't think he's in there on the radar at the present time, but he should be. I mean, he's not playing in winning sides. That hurts. I think Goldstein's last month has put him in the reckoning. He knocked off Sauce Jacobs down in Tassie over the weekend, and Sandilands and Sauce have been good the whole way through. And Steph Martin,
he's
revelation, but probably only been there half a season.
There's not many blokes who exert more influence on their team than Shane Mumford.
I love Mummy because for a big bloke, he doesn't mind getting down on his knees and cracking in at ground level.
He does.
What about you, Sage one?
Sage one?
Yes. And I checked with Mark Evans as well.
Minimal force?
Insufficient force for last week, so stop talking.
My moment was Richmond's 6th goal yesterday at the MCG, Jason. You were there.
Yep.
Here it starts with Alex Rance back in the back line. Grimes tapping it forward. Now, watch the way they run here. The Tigers, everyone's presenting themselves. The team ethic prevails. Grimes continues down there, takes the ball, gives it to Jack. Jack does the unselfish thing to Marriage, goal.
Marriage drops it and kicks a goal.
I think I was calling the game that I actually called it party football because they were kicking around corners, they were hitting targets, doing whatever they wanted and it was coming off.
When I saw that, I thought, there's 6 goals, the Saints were none. I know they're not a great measuring stick, the Saints, but I thought, why can't this team beat Sydney next week and hang on to the 8th spot that it's got?
Well, I'll give you a tip. There'll be a hell of a lot more pressure from the opposition than there was from St Kilda.
And I'll give you a
minutes.
fact. You give me the tip, I'll give you the fact. They've won 8 in a row, and before that they lost by 11 points to the Swans.
What they've got,
the MCG.
What they've got, Mike, is enormous momentum.
Of course they have.
It is frightening, it is scary, but hell, it was so exciting early. They dropped off. They did what they had to do yesterday, and I think the Swans will know that. Let's take a look at the AFL ladder. We'll come back to your preferred favourite, Michael. But here it is, Jason. What takes your fancy?
I'm looking forward to next week's game between Freo and Port. That is going to be a cracker. It'll decide 4th spot, and that could make a huge difference over both those sides, how far they go come September.
It's probably the most important game of round 23 because if Fremantle lose, they've got no Barlow, no Fife, then all of a sudden potentially out goes their premiership chances.
And how good that we get down to the last round and there's still 3 or 4 teams outside the 8 trying to force their way in.
No, it's exciting. But am I back on the Tigers?
No, you're not. We're going to take a look at the final scenario. Run through it for us, Michael, because you're going to make the the case for the Tigers. Quite clearly, it's they need to win.
Well, it's Richmond's to lose, as you said, and I think the broad view is that West Coast is the best place of the teams outside the 8 to make that run if Richmond falter.
It's interesting. West Coast, I think, are most likely. But Adelaide, if they have a huge win, they can still come over the top of West Coast as well. So there's a lot can still unfold.
Are we riding off the Gold Coast? They were really impressive last week.
Yeah, we
are. No, I'm not talking about the finals, but we're riding them off as a chance to beat the West Coast because it seems that people are just ticking the West Coast off.
Yeah, well, we're only dealing in probabilities, aren't we? And I think
so. You're going the Tigers?
I am. We've been going for 5 months and 23 rounds, and they are 8th.
Could Collingwood cause an upset Friday night?
No hope.
Oh,
no, I'm with you.
Very quick to ride them off.
They had their one upset. It was a brilliant victory, but they've had their upset. They've got mothballs, but hopefully
what an upset over GWS.
It was an upset. We'll come back to that. Mike, now's your chance to tell us why the Tigers.
Jared, I just think that when they're in this situation, if you're in the top 8 at this time of year, we've been jockeying for 5 months to get to this position. They are there. They have more to play for than the Swans have at the weekend. Their momentum's huge. I just think they are a genuine chance. I know that's a minority view, but I think that they're a genuine chance at ANZ Stadium.
I think what the Swans are going to do is look at what happened over the last few weeks and realise that Basher Hurley and Grimes, their run off that back line just really does give them the springboard, and you'd be surprised if they're able to do what we saw last night at the MCG. I haven't seen this guy play as good a game as this.
No, but he's fit. I mean, he's had a lot of injury problems that goes in the family, and Basher, I like the way he got really a heavy hit yesterday, got straight up. I think that they're really tuned in, these blokes. I reckon there's a belief there that we haven't seen for a long time.
Well, he's the bloke they want delivering the footy too, Basher Hurley.
And the other bloke they're kicking it to more often now is Delidio when we go forward, and I love the way that he's risen to the challenge. He's one of the most talented players in the competition. He's gone forward and he's doing the things that his talent says he can do.
Well, that's not dissimilar to Dustin Martin, who they're getting...
Who will come back this week.
Such great productivity out of in the attacking 50, and then you throw Delidio in there as well because they're that mid-size... Martin's almost a power forward. Delidio can take a very good mark up in the air. He can kick goals from 50 metres out, so they're good weapons to have.
Are you surprised that Gordon is playing? He has not been pinged by the MRP?
Well, we did the game yesterday. I reckon he's lucky, because when you talk about insufficient force, well, the only thing it didn't do was knock Cameron Shenton over, but he was wobbly. Make no mistake about that. They talk about, do you have options? Well, the option was to go to the ball. He chose to bump. He hit him on the jaw, and it was insufficient force. They were in a really forgiving mood, the MRP, I reckon. Everything was insufficient.
You consider Daniel Wells sitting home watching that after what happened to him the previous week.
I think it might have extended to one Lenny Hayes as well. Everyone loves Lenny, Mike.
Don't raise Lenny.
MRP.
12 months ago, Fremantle played their last game. Their situation was safe in the finals. Ross Lyon rested half his team. Do you think the Swans, even though John Longmire said that they'll play their best team, they will be conservative, will they not, in selection this week? I mean, I'm talking about Josh Kennedy,
look,
perhaps Kurt Tippett.
First thing I'd say is that Ross Lyon and John Longmire are different beasts. There's not a big plane trip involved. I think that makes a difference as well. And I think that John Longmire's already come out and said if they're fit, they'll play. If they've got a niggle, I think you rest them, but you don't flirt with form and momentum.
But the formula remains the same, Mike. I remember you writing a column, might have even been back when you were working for the larger paper, about injured players and how many players are used throughout a season.
That's the magical number 32. Oh, you remember that, Joe?
I do. It goes back a long way, but the formula still maintains. And you look at that list again, and it virtually reads as the top 8 reads.
Yeah, you've got to have your good players out on the park. The Swans have got 8 blokes that haven't missed a game. They're all resilient bodies, I must say that. They could play every day of the week.
So does Tippett play?
Well, I don't know how... He was subbed out on the weekend. He's obviously got a chronic problem with his knee.
Do you risk Kennedy?
No, you don't risk Kennedy. I wouldn't risk Kennedy, would you? I think he had a hamstring issue of all.
He wanted to play on the weekend, though.
Yeah.
So I don't know if
it doesn't hurt them to get more game time into Tom Mitchell, into Zach Jones, into one or two others that they can bring in. I think the one that's a certainty to miss is Craig Bird. Reed's a chance to come through. And the other one is the Golden Boot himself, Buddy. Do you just rest him because You don't want him to get injured.
No, he's safer on the ground than he is off it, Gerard.
He's in good form. He's
One of your better lines, Mike. I like that.
He's kicking goals. You keep him kicking goals.
Yeah, and he wants to play.
Yeah, let's turn our attention to West Coast for a moment. Talking about kicking goals, how much better a side have West Coast become now that Jack Kennedy and Josh Kennedy and Jack Darling are up and running together? We've had games where one's played well and the other hasn't, but when they're both hitting the scoreboard, they create space for each other. They're powerful. They're quick. They lead well. They're going to have a big say on the weekend about
this will shock you, Gerard. I was in Perth last week.
I did hear you went over for a function, Mike.
There's no doubt it was a West Coast function, and you would expect them to be positive. But I sensed a real belief in this group that if they can get there.
Have you seen their numbers over the last month?
Yeah, they've turned the corner.
Have a look at some of these numbers over the last month. Their rankings are points for number 1 in the competition. Points against, they're in the top 6. Time in the forward half and inside 50s differential. They are good numbers.
But they have left themselves open to the fate of other sides. The loss against the Tigers a couple of weeks ago has really hurt them. But the biggest game, I think, of the weekend, as I said, is Port Adelaide versus Fremantle. It may decide whether either of these two teams can really have a genuine crack at the flag. And it's a beauty to go.
It's 50-50, I reckon, even though it's in Perth.
A couple of key outs for Freo.
Yeah. Well, they're going to miss again, Fife and Barlow. But this is the more positive thing is the way these blokes are playing their footy again.
Well, they're back running, aren't they?
They are.
And we're talking about everyone running.
Yep.
52,000.
Like they're hard to stop.
505 witnessed this one, Jason. It's a great atmosphere. You wouldn't want to play a final against either of the Adelaide sides here with this sort of atmosphere.
No, they make a definite impact on the game, don't they? And I think they make it very difficult for the umpires as well. When you get that 50-50 decision and there is a crowd roaring with this sort of intensity.
On that point, Jason, I think I know the answer to this, but given the strength of Port Adelaide at home, do they go to finish 4th and get the double chance and then have to go on the road? Or would they be content finishing 5th and having the home final?
I think you always take the double chance. They went to Sydney earlier in the year, they lost by a kick. It was a cracking game. And I think you've got to take the attitude that you're not afraid of anyone, and if going to Sydney in week 1 is what you have to do, you do it. Because if you happen to jag that one, then you've set up September on your own terms. You get the cleanest path through, you get the week off, and you're ready to go.
We've said a number of times just what a player Robbie Gray has become. Well, it would appear as if he's about to be acknowledged by the coaches, Mike. His performance on the weekend, you'd expect he would get somewhere between 5 and 8 votes. So he has got the Coaches Association Award wrapped up.
He's it's stating the obvious now, but he's a very accomplished player.
I love his evasive skills. Look at that. Holding the ball in one hand, he stepped around 3 blokes.
Yeah.
He's exciting.
Yeah, no, he's one of... Kenny Hinkley said on Friday night that Robbie Gray gets his 5 votes, so that means he's unbeatable. I want to ask you one thing about that. As good as Gray is and as accomplished as he is, he ran in and he had a shot at goal and kicked it off the right side of his right boot. Now, here it is here. Watch this. Now, players as good as him, aren't they two-sided?
Well, they are, and in those highlights moments ago, we saw him snap a goal on his left foot. But I think also some of the more skillful players try to finesse the ball on their natural foot more so than going to the opposite.
You don't agree with that, though, do you?
Oh, look, I prefer to use the opposite foot because you're balanced on that side, and I think you've got the best angle to use that foot from. But it's a very touch and feel sort of kick, that other one, isn't it?
It is.
I want to just show you some vision about from Chad Wingard. No one has wrapped Chad Wingard up more than this program, but he's having a tough year and he's just got to be careful he doesn't let his emotions go. You can see him there, bottom of the screen. He's filthy that he doesn't get the ball kicked over. Then about 5 minutes later, he takes a chest mark. He doesn't even look around. He finally does, and the same bloke's in the square who says,
tit for tat.
Go back and kick the goal. And I think these are sort of things that if you've been a little bit frustrated, you've got to make sure that it doesn't permeate.
It's a really good point, I reckon, because he distracted Robbie Gray.
He did.
Gray saw it and didn't know whether he'd done the wrong thing or not. You're suddenly putting something in someone's mind when his only task should be to kick the goal.
I agree. What I liked about Robbie Gray's decision was, even if he had have chipped it over, Chad Wingard's having the same shot for goal that he's having, just from the other side of the corridor. It's no different.
But he had the hunger back, Wingard, didn't he?
He
wanted
did.
the footy.
He was a hell of a lot better than he has been, and he can still turn his season around with some big finals. We saw the two midgets together, Ballantyne and Walters, Michael. And Chris Mayne also put in his best performance for the year. He's been building as well. It's a dangerous act. No Pavlich. They still just steamrolled the Lions.
Yes, they scare you, those two little blokes, don't they? Because they can do things that are unpredictable.
Well, it's the big blokes for West Coast. We're talking about Darling and Kennedy. It's these blokes for Freo. And just remember that Walters started this move off. And there he is getting on the end of it again. He's covering ground. He's obviously done a lot of conditioning work in the time that he was out. He looks super dangerous, and I love the two of those playing in the attack.
Yeah, you were marvelling at just how hard he has come back to the game and how hard he's running.
Well, that's what happens to players when they have injuries that don't stop them from running. They virtually do another pre-season. So they come back super fit. Brian Lake's been talking about the same thing, having that capacity, the lungs, to actually run and get involved further. Walters is the same. That's what the players hate missing a lot of footy, because they go back and do pre-season all over again.
What'd you take out of Saturday night, Jason? Your old mob up against the Cats. The legend of these two clubs is well known. This was a most unusual game. I
thought we saw two very different styles of play, and both of them proved to be dominant at different stages. But the Cats, they want to run and carry the ball with handball, because the Hawks would fold back and get numbers back. They want the Cats to kick it into them. But the Cats are too clever.
Did they adapt their usual game?
Well, they handballed even more so than all. I mean, they're a high handballing team, but they had the most handballs, more handballs than kicks on the weekend. In that first half, the Hawks' pressure wasn't up to scratch early on. You can have a look here. Look at the
here's
numbers.
the comparison between the prelim final, which was a cliffhanger, and what we saw on the weekend. And you just see the handball numbers are going through from the Cats, and the uncontested possessions going through, which some have suggested indicated it was a bit like a dance with your sister, but that's not the game I saw.
No,
they ran and carried. The Hawks had fold back, get numbers behind the ball. They want you to kick it to them. But the Cats were smart enough, and they had enough outside speed to run, carry, handball, and draw those players eventually up, handball over the top, and create countless scoring opportunities. And they put such pressure at the contest on the Hawks, they made the Hawks kick the ball quickly.
They were on track for 500 possessions at half-time. Now, what happened? Half-time comes. Clarko would have unloaded on the Hawthorn blokes.
He did.
There's no doubt about that.
And I think what lifted was two things. They started to win a little bit of first use of the footy, but the pressure around the stoppage was much greater. We didn't see quick kicks out of a stoppage from the Cats in the first half. We saw a hand pass out the back, link up with a couple of others, run, carry, and away they went. All of a sudden in the second half, every ball was hot, and they had no time to dispose of the ball. They're going in the wrong direction, didn't know where they were coming or going. Completely different game in the second half.
In each of those situations you talked about, number 29 for Hawthorn with the blonde hair, W. Langford was present.
But you know what? I saw something in him the week before over in Perth against Fremantle. I thought he did really, really well. I mean, he might have lowered his colours on the night, but he was playing against quality midfielders, and I think he just took it to another level again. And he's, look, at different stages. He's only a young kid playing a handful of games. He's lacked a bit of polish, but his aggression and his courage and his desire to compete, and then when you add to that, finishing off with a couple of goals, takes the game to a whole new level. And I thought the way that you have a young bloke with that sort of aggression leading became infectious, the spirit amongst the group.
He's a kid playing for his spot in a possible premiership there. So different to his father, isn't he?
Very different.
His father was so sophisticated, this kid would run through a brick wall to get a kick, wouldn't he?
One of the interesting elements to the game was the post-match. Chris Scott was so positive.
We're feeling pretty positive about the night. Obviously, it didn't go away in the second half, but we played really good footy in the first half, and I think it was it sounds funny to say, but it was a step forward in our preparation. We always went into the game wanting to play well. We certainly didn't put the cue in the rack, or not consciously, anyway, at half-time after a good performance. And we'll learn some things from tonight. So, in that respect, it's kind of mission accomplished a little bit.
Jace, Hawkins and Lake. I thought Hawkins was okay, but I was really taken with the way Lake played.
I thought it was a terrific battle, and I know a lot of people wanted to give Lake votes. Hawkins was a good contributor as well. He kicked 3 goals. He is a brute of a man, but there are a lot of one-on-ones. Now, Hawkins is always going to win a few, and this one was just out-muscling him. He got a couple working back towards goal, so he competes here, gets tackled hard. Lake did a lot of running off. He got a lot of possessions, and he halved the number of contests. Good competitive mark there. I thought Lake played really, really well, but I wouldn't say that Hawkins was ineffective. I thought he was a good contributor.
That's as sharp as I've seen Lake this year. I think the occasion and the big name, that brings the best out of him, doesn't it?
Well, Hawthorn will be hoping he can do that another 4 or 5 times.
Why do you think he was so positive, Chris Scott, Jason? Was that for the players, or was it because he saw a way to unravel the Hawks?
Well, I think he saw in the first half that their best football is good enough to beat anyone.
Yeah.
But can they do it for the 4 quarters? And that's what he's been trying to find out throughout the course of the year. And we know we've spoken a number of times and documented their second halves, how they've fallen away. Their best is supreme. They've just got to do it for longer.
The one thing that the Hawks did do in the second half was make Harry Taylor defend. And Jared Ruffhead and Spanger were both on him from the word go. But
Spanger wanted him, didn't he?
Spanger wanted him, but he couldn't quite get to him. He dead set opened up some space. He made Harry Taylor ineffective in the intercept marking. And at times it just opened up the passage for the 2 ruckmen, in particular Segler, to jump into the space and do some damage.
It's interesting, wasn't it? Because once you go to the number 1 forward, you don't get to peel off and take those intercept marks. So it was an interesting tactic. They didn't want him to be shut down by someone like Spanger. So you send him to a Ruffhead, and that means the Hawks certainly aren't going to run 2 against 1. But then all of a sudden it takes away the ability to take those intercept marks.
Sure, now, we've talked Segler before. Yep. He is in the best Hawthorn team, is he not?
At the moment, I think he is, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
I thought he played well again Saturday night.
An interesting one with Jimmy Bartell. It's had a lot of airplay, this. Jimmy took a dive, and I think we're all stunned that it would be Jimmy Bartell that could do this. Now, I actually was pleased in the finish because I think this brought the focus back onto this issue. We saw it with Lindsay Thomas. And
it's not dissimilar to that one.
No, it's not. And I think Jimmy would be embarrassed by that, but it just is going to convince us all that it's not a part of the game. And now I want to ask you, was the crowd booing Jimmy for the dive or because of his tangle with Jordan Lewis?
Jordan Lewis shortly thereafter, I'm not quite sure, but you put the 2 of them together, and he didn't endear himself to the Hawthorn crowd. So it's unusual to see someone like a Jimmy Bartell, who's a much loved and respected character, to get booed every time he gets near the ball.
Yeah.
And look, there was nothing in that. It was just, as I said, these 2 teams, there's some feeling out there. They respect each other, but they don't like each other.
But Jimmy would never have done it before, and he will never do it again. But don't you think it does put the focus on this, and it just does make us...
Yeah, the focus is there, but it couldn't have been any more focused, if you like, when Lindsay Thomas did it, and yet 4 weeks later we've got another issue.
Bartell's at another level.
So what happens to change it?
Well, look, I'm not looking for Jimmy to get into any more trouble than anyone else has, but if the AFL have a rule, they've got to implement it. Tip the rule out or use it. Over
to you, Mark Evans, is the message from Mike Sheen.
Jared, the Crows, I know you've watched them a bit in recent weeks. They've had chances to force their way into the 8. Were they disappointing on the weekend?
Oh, I think they're very disappointing. I tipped the Crows, and I think if they can't beat North Melbourne without Boomer Harvey playing, and if they can't beat the Tigers on their own home dung heap, then they're not quite good enough.
Doesn't that say it all, Jared?
It does say everything.
I mean, there's the answer. They've had 2 wins from 10 games against top 8 teams. I think all of you, not you, I think you and the majority of commentators have done North a disservice this weekend in focusing on what the Crows may have done. North deserve the credit for that.
Yes,
they won it, they nearly lost it, and they won it back.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking to Michael Firrito for about 15 minutes about that shortly. Michael, I make those comments because the coach, Brenton Sanderson, I think may have overrated this team. Now, they may fall into the 8. We make that rider. But this is what he had to say following a Collingwood game. Later on, we'll have another look at that. But remember when he said, we expect to beat the Pies. We are a top 4, top 6 side. That's the sort of stuff that, to me, has elevated the expectations.
They teased a bit this year, didn't they?
They've got good players. I mean, we've had Brenton Sanderson on the show earlier in the year. He's extremely optimistic about the future because they're all 21 to 24, 25 years of age. This group's coming through together. But when you look at some of the players, we've spoken about Brodie Smith and Daniel Taylor are 2 that we've said are virtually locks for all Australian. I mean, they're not the only 2. But Jenkins has improved this year as well. When you've got your Sloanes and your Dangerfields and your Scotty Thompsons and your Richard Douglases in the middle of the ground. This is a team you should be getting excited about.
But their best forward, and one of the best forwards in the competition, Taylor Walker's not. I mean, the knee injury is a 2-year injury, and he'll be a lot better next year than he has been this year.
But he gives them structure.
Dangerfield's off. Dangerfield's off. Douglas hasn't been as good as he's been previously.
Got a good ruckman.
Yeah, he's had a good year. Yeah.
Good back six.
And they had some opportunities to win the game, and I think J-Pod would prefer to have his last quarter again if he could, because he was involved in a number, and Michael Firrito was his opponent. We'll chat to him about this particular little skirmish.
I reckon that's stiff. Spud just leant on him with the leg. To let him know that he didn't like him taking the mark, and he's given him the open hand in the stomach. You make the most of it, and you get the reward.
That's a tough penalty, I reckon.
Yeah, I think so.
May well have.
You agree?
I do. May well have cost him the 4 points, Mike.
Still, you don't do it, do you? You've got the ball, you don't do it.
Well, they had that example. The Kangaroos had their own problems during the week with Boomer Harvey. Michael Firrito, his teammate, is going to join us straight after this to take us through the year of the Kangaroos.
It's a mark. Settle down. Settle down. Industrious Malcheski for the moment.
Oh, you're getting that too high? Your arm was
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not. I think Malcheski disagrees a little bit.
He's been listening to Michael Firrito. Yeah, I was going to say shades of Firrito. Holding his arm. Against you, Michael. Mark's here. Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not.
Are you kidding me? None of you doing it.
I love it. It's been his footy that's done most of the talking, but it looks like the verbal challenge has taken off around the AFL. But Michael Firrito is a great footy story this year. Welcome to the couch.
Thanks, boys. Thanks for having me.
We thought it would just be great to have you on, because this time last year, frankly, your season, your career, I should say, appeared to be over.
Yeah, it was. It was a tough year for me. I thought I was done there, but thankfully the club showed a bit of faith in me, and Brad Scott's been very good as well, and able to fight through it. And this year things have turned for me.
Michael, this time last year that Jared talked about, 12 months ago exactly, I was invited down to Werribee. Scotty West asked me to come down. I went to the rooms before the game. You were there. You played 5 games in the seconds. Luke McDonald was alongside you. Yeah. I think at the time your body language said you thought it was over, and there you are now playing alongside him in a team that's going to play finals.
Yeah, it's a long time, 12 months, but I guess at that stage of my career I thought it might have been over. This was my first game back in the twos, and it was out at Coburg. It was a pretty tough sort of day. It was wet and cold, and I actually
that's you in number 70?
Justice there, but
70.
Yeah, it was a long way back from there. I had troubles with my knee and my quad, and I was, for a long time I've been in our best side, and I slid out. So it was a tough time. Footy tests you, not only your ability but your character as well. So that was a really big test for me.
We see a lot of this, players in the twilight of their career, and most people have them retired. What happens in terms of communication between the club and the player? You're speaking to the coaches. Are they telling you, look, you're probably out of the best side now, and maybe the chances aren't going to be there? Because this has been one of those rare turnarounds where you should be buttering up for another deal now.
Yeah, I guess it's a difficult thing. I was 29, I was in the twos, and it's pretty easy to cast judgments on people, isn't it? Because you think, where is he at?
Yep.
I certainly knew I was coming to the end, because I was getting 3 or 4 missed phone calls from local clubs saying about my services. So I was thinking I may very well be done. But yeah, like I said, Brad Scott was really good. We spoke almost weekly, and we sort of come to the conclusion that we would make the best decision for myself and the footy club together. So
if Luke Delaney had have stayed, would you have been finished at North?
Yeah, that's what it come down to. Luke Delaney, went for another offer at St Kilda, more opportunities. Unfortunately for me, that was the spot that I took on the list in the end. So yeah, that's what it come down to.
I remember seeing you earlier in the year, a game against the Demons, and the Demons were in reasonable form back then. You were one of the best on the ground, and it looked to me as if the confidence was starting to slowly come back. And your form since then has been first class. class.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things. I started the year in the reserves. I was able to do a whole pre-season. I think that's really, what sort of helped me get to the form that I have been. But I started the year, I wasn't in our best 22. I come in at round 4 against the Sydney Swans at the SCG and slowly worked from there. So it's been a long build, but it's great to be back playing good football. And I guess when you have those doubts and you think your career's over, it's pretty tough. But it always comes to the end at some stage. But
is that this year, or are you going again?
Well, we'll soon see. We've got a big couple of months of footy hopefully left, or hopefully 4 or 5 games for us. So we'll see how we go. And I'm feeling good. Last year I was feeling like a 40-year-old and sore and didn't know where I was going. And now I'm feeling like Boomer Harvey again, feeling young and able to train and do all those things. So hopefully we can go on again and see where the footy club's at.
Michael, we've seen North's best has been able to compete with anyone, wins over all the top teams, but you haven't been able to develop that consistency. What do you see as the key to unlocking a successful September campaign for North Melbourne? Yeah,
look, I think we're slowly building towards that, but we played a game that was a finals-like game down in Hobart on the weekend, and I think our young guys are starting to develop, and they're all playing 70, 80 games. Bastanak played his 100th game on the weekend, so I guess that experience and belief within the group is growing, and we know we have to continue to improve to be the best consistently, and I think we're on our way, and it's exciting times ahead for the footy club.
Pivotal moment in the game at the weekend with you and Pods. Pods pushed you from front and pushed you in the stomach. Yeah. Were you surprised that was reversed?
No, I wasn't, because I guess the umpires have been paying them a little bit. A couple of weeks ago against Geelong, Boomer copped a couple like that, a little similar force. So I guess it's the interpretation of the umpire, and sometimes they go for you and sometimes they don't.
You mentioned You mentioned Burma before.
Are you upset by that, by the way? Do you see that as staging, like Jimmy Bartel, or not?
No.
You said he milked it.
Did you milk it?
No, I didn't milk it. It was there. I probably made sure the umpire saw it, but I think it's just sportsmanship, isn't it?
Burma's name was mentioned before. Was he hard done by, or do you blokes feel are you a bit frustrated that you're going to lose your best player of the season from your first final because of an indiscretion?
Yeah, I guess it's disappointing. We'd love the Boomer to be there, but I guess he cops a lot of attention. And I guess if someone was sitting behind you or sitting there and hitting into you,
happened to me last week,
plenty of times. I didn't see the show, but I guess if the umpire sees it early and pays it, it'll probably cut it out of the game a lot of the time. So it's disappointing, but I guess perhaps the umpires have to look at protecting those sort of guys, and I've probably been one in the past that gets into those sort of players too. So I guess we're all on notice, but it's disappointing. He probably needs to umpires have a closer look at the attention he receives.
Is it unfair for North Melbourne fans to expect too much out of Daniel Wells? He's missed most of the season, comes back for a game, got rubbed out. He'll come back in, but he's not going to be at his peak physical powers, is he?
No, he's not. He's missed a lot of football, but he's done a massive load of work, and we think he's going to be great to have back in the side. His experience, the way he uses the ball, and that sort of thing is very important for us, and so we're certainly looking forward to getting him back. But I think next year with a solid pre-season, we'll see Wellsy of old.
Your last finals appearance wasn't a great day for the footy club against the West Coast. How much, now that you locked away a finals position, how much is that going to pay as part of the drive for success?
Look, it was very disappointing last time over at Subiaco, and we were a little bit cooked by the time we got there, I thought. But this year we can prepare. We know we're part of it, and I think we're getting close to our best side out there. It would be great to have Boomer, but unfortunately won't. And it looks like it'll be the Bombers. So we're certainly very excited about it, and can't wait for it to
Michael,
come.
a lot of us have seen Jack Zeeble in the last 2 or 3 years as the younger guy that would take the big step and become a leader at the footy club. He was good at the weekend. It's been a while coming, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. Look, he's been a great young player for us and a great leader, and he's very impressive. And the things he did on the weekend was great, to be able to go forward and kick those goals. A week before it was Cunnington, and they're both big bodies.
But he's special, this kid, isn't he? I mean, he should be an elite player, shouldn't he?
He is, and I think he's building towards that.
Is this his position though? Is he more of a forward centreman than a centreman forward?
No, I think we'll still see him go through the midfield a fair bit. I think that stage of the game, Ben Brown had been subbed off, so we had the two talls, and it's a tough matchup to go on. He's 188, can mark it above his head, but he's also good at the ground, so they're hard to play on.
Now, mate, a few weeks back we had Freak Week, and you shared with us, and we've got some great footage of it. A little mate that you keep on your thigh. Can you explain to us exactly how that happened, and what is this lump made of?
Yeah, it's,
look at that.
That's pretty famous around the locker rooms. That little lump there. But,
does it go off when you go through the airport security?
Been patted down a few times, yeah. But it's well, actually, that was part of the reason I was probably struggling last year. I've got a bit of a grumbly old knee on my right, and that quad injury probably affected it a bit too. So whilst I love the lump now, and we have a laugh about it, it almost caused me to be playing local footy. So
tell us about Kane Turner. Is he still at school?
Yeah, he is doing year 12.
He must be hard. Every time someone talks about him, they say how hard this kid is.
Yeah, he's impressive. Day one when he walked into the club, he looked like a jockey, and we went out there and trained, and I think it might have been Jack Zeeble. He threw himself in front of Jack, and I thought this kid's got to get himself killed, but he's done it time and time again, and to have the impact he's had in 2 games is very impressive, and I think Roos fans can be pretty excited about him for years to come.
Well, excitement abounds for the Kangaroos. You're back in the finals, and we're thrilled that you've made a major comeback, Michael. Thanks for coming in, and good luck for the rest of your career, and in a couple of weeks' time when you're back playing finals footy.
No, thanks, boys. Thanks for having me.
Michael Firrito, our special guest. Plenty more to come on the couch.
Back to you, Big Bill. Pit. Hey, short. Sorry. Bill, kick it goal, mate. Bill. Roof.
There's an opportunity. Armitage off the left. That's 3 in a row.
Good handball, boy. Good handball. Come on. Good contest.
We had David Armitage mic'd up all game last night in the coverage on Fox Footy, and the one thing that came through again was just how hard the game is.
Good stuff, isn't it?
That's fantastic.
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I love the comment to Nick Revell. Good handball, boy. Good handball.
Number 12.
And I think Billy Longer needs a nickname because he's just
Bill
at this stage. Plenty of mics at a windy hill today for the return of James Hird, Michael.
Yes, Jared, I must say...
He was slack today. I mean, his contract allowed him to get there at 2 a.m.
He was 10 hours late. I was surprised he went there today.
Why are you surprised?
Well, because he doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, but it has to.
He's working for 2015. We were told that he was going to do nothing this year, so it wouldn't be a distraction for the players.
Well, they said he went there and he's working on 2015.
Well, he can do that at home.
Well,
surely you just get
you've got to get it out of the way, exactly.
I would have, no, not for mine. I didn't. I thought I was amazed when I heard that he'd gone there this morning.
Well, I think they just told everyone he's coming out. Get your cameras here. Let's do it once and move on.
Couldn't wait 2 weeks.
Only going to make one final, Mike. They'll continue to go well if Paddy Ryder continues to play as well as he did.
I've been a big critic of Ryder's over the journey. He was a Rising Star nominee in 2007, and yet has never had a top 3 best and fairest finish. Finally, I think Mark Thompson has got the key to this bloke. His skills have always been impeccable, but his ruck works great, his hands works beautiful, and he can go forward and kick goals.
Whatever they've done to him this year, it's worked because he's nearly their most important player. He's their best ruckman by a long way, and he's nearly their best forward. He's got a beautiful set of hands. He's a good kicker.
He's been unfulfilled, hasn't he?
Yeah. Well, maybe he's just taken time to, get into the demands of it week in, week out.
They continually do the slow and the fast stuff.
Oh, did you see the first quarter? It was remarkable. They had a gazillion possessions and went inside 50 about 8 times. It was absolutely ridiculous. They overused the ball. All Gold Coast did was pull everyone behind it. Well, let them do this all day. You can keep going backwards as much as you like because you're not going to score while you're doing that. And then they did this for the entire first quarter. They had so many more possessions, it was ridiculous. And eventually, for the last 3 quarters, they started to move the ball quicker. And when they did go, they did it in devastating fashion. They can move the ball quickly. They've got to do a little bit more of this.
So what makes them pull the trigger when they've been bogged down like that? What happened?
Well, I think Bomber would have spoken to them at quarter time and said, guys, we owned the football and we didn't even threaten the goals because we didn't go inside 50 enough. In fact, they had so many more possessions than Gold Coast without going inside 50. Look at that, 110 touches for 8 inside 50s. Yeah. I think at quarter time Bomber said, hey, the ball's got to go down the other end, and have a look at the numbers after that.
Have a look at the headline too, Jason. That was one of Mike's specials. He's on fire at this stage. Gold Coast, how have you seen their year, Mike? Because they played some really good footy on the day. They nearly pinched it, and they've unearthed some terrific players, we know, but they've fallen just a bit short.
It's nearly a godsend that Gazza decided to have the operation, I reckon, because we wanted to see how they were without him. They were poor. Remember the first 2 or 3 weeks? They clearly couldn't fill the void, and they didn't look like they were too interested. But I think they're going to finish the season on a high, don't you?
Well, I thought they were dead and buried a couple of weeks ago because they'd had those few weeks where they looked non-competitive. But they've got a little bit of run back.
They have.
And they showed some patches on the weekend that were very, very good. You've also got to weigh up Essendon's involvement in that. We saw a couple of key errors. One from Jobe Watson, which was a 50-metre penalty that was reversed. That was very, very costly. He's just walking over the mark, getting closer and closer. You can't keep walking forward, Jobe. You've got to get pinged eventually. We saw a loose hand pass here back into the corridor, which cost him a goal, to Dion Prestia, who played a terrific game and kicked a couple of these. He was very, very good. So they were 4 goals up, and all of a sudden the game was back on level pegging. And I found really interesting the comments from Bomber Thompson post-game. He was actually asked about those mental lapses and the inability to concentrate for 4 quarters.
Wish we didn't do it. Well, that's just... You're right, and they know it. They know it too. But unfortunately, they haven't been able to stop it, whether things on their mind or... I think the group's good enough to do it, and it's something that, you know, I've been looking for the keys to unlock that part, but I can't. I haven't been able to. But I'm not saying I can't, you know, because there's still weeks to go in the year.
Couple of weeks to go at least. You said he found the key for Paddy Ryder.
There are weeks when
key for a few others.
The press conference is more entertaining than the game.
Oh, he's good.
When
he's
Bob was
entertaining, isn't he?
He is, isn't he?
Now, Jared, we had another one on the weekend. Another case of sun in the eyes with the roof open. What's going on?
Well, I've got to say, Jason, we've had a partial win on this particular issue. I know the AFL are stubborn. You see Carlo.
He ain't got a clue where the ball is.
He cannot see anything.
He hasn't got a clue.
Rory Thompson, he was making all of this. But a revelation, the AFL are testing partial roof closure policy.
So there's a partial solution.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Well, you just bring the northern end in slowly, Mike, just to sort of cut as much of the shade off the ground as you can, but still have an open roof game.
I've got a novel idea.
Yes.
If you shut the roof, you wouldn't have to worry about any degree of shade and light.
Fantastic idea, Mike. You keep coming up with those, you'll make it in this business. Jason, the Pies. It was, I think, one of their most courageous wins under Nathan Buckley. I know others don't, including your good self, Mike, but a lot of people tipped Greater Western Sydney. It was a bad loss by them, and this group, with 3 interchange players down, found a way.
Well, they've had a horror run all year, and we saw the quality of players they lost last week, which included Cloak and Beams, amongst others. Then you lose Swan, you lose Young, you lose McCaffer. They've got nobody on the bench to rotate through. I mean, this is just an extraordinary list.
No, it's an horrendous list. I concede that. I thought just there was a bit made of it, Jude, that we'd forgotten the fact that GWS had 6 or 7 of their best players not out there.
I understand that. They went in minus a lot of good players.
But this happened 3 more during the game.
Yeah.
You've got no rotation.
And they were playing poor.
I want to ask you, Jared, had those injuries not occurred to Swan, Young and the third...
And
McCaffer, what do you think the result might have been?
Well, I know this would sound silly, but I don't think they would have won. I get the feeling that they rose to the challenge from Nathan Buckley. At half-time, he would have gone in and said, this is pathetic, we've got an opportunity. And they lifted. Sidebottom was reasonably ordinary early. He lifted. Pendlebury had a lot of possession, but I don't think he was that effective early. He really lifted. And they just built and built and built. And you could just see a little bit of panic setting in for the GWS. It was a courageous victory.
And the younger blokes rose to the challenge too, didn't they? Yeah, which Bucks would be really pleased with.
Yeah, Mumford, I think, on the bench was was a mistake late in the piece.
What happens if Jason's point earlier was that he hadn't had a rest?
Well, either had any of the Pies players.
Yeah.
So to me, it was like the game is in dispute. They put Boyd into the ruck for 5 minutes about the 15-minute mark. It immediately turned into this goal, and then the Pies started to believe, and I think it was something that they should have kept Hunt out in the ground and Big Mummy as well.
Luke Ball had an impact, came into the game, had an impact. There's been conjecture about his future. Do you see another season for Luke Ball?
I've always loved Luke Ball as a player.
We all do.
Love him as a leader, love him as a character around the club.
Here, Jason.
My concern is that there's not enough left in his body to be able to have the contribution that he'd like to make.
McCaffer going, does that increase the likelihood that...
Well, he's not going to play the role that McCaffer plays.
No,
what about Sam
true.
Fisher? There's a number of players that will be weighing up their future. Sam Fisher, to me, showed enough last night alone to suggest he's worth persevering.
Bit of old Sam, wasn't it?
Oh, it's terrific.
Yeah.
A bit of non-Sam too, with a couple of the kicks that were atrocious. And
hasn't had a lot of footy, has he?
That's the problem.
Yeah.
We don't know what he's still capable of because he's missed so much footy this year, so we'll get a better indication, I think,
Will
next
Minson?
season. Well, Will got dropped, didn't he?
Statement made by the coach.
Subbed out and then dropped.
I don't think he disappears, though. He's still got some footy to offer.
You've got some news on James Frawley because he is one.
The latest mail I'm hearing, Jared, is I don't think there's any question he's going to be leaving Melbourne. I think that's a given now.
Yep.
If I had to punt right now, I'd say that he'll end up at Geelong and that the deal won't be 7 years, it'll be 5 and it'll be in the order of $2.5 million. So that'll be 5 times $500,000 a year. That's where, if I were to go into print now, that's the story I'd write on.
Okie doke. Which does what for them, Jason? Because I think they're desperate to play Harry Taylor forward. Yeah,
but will he have the impact that they want as a designated forward? Some players get into the course of the game, swing forward, and it's a bit of a surprise tactic. When you're set there and a player's set for you and he goes straight at you at the first bounce, is he a natural forward? We'll probably find out.
But he's looked comfortable there several times, Harry Taylor.
He has.
And I think I must say about Frawley.
James Frawley.
I think Frawley's reputation's been trashed in the last several weeks. Now, it may be of his doing, but it's very different for anyone wearing red and blue to enhance their reputation.
Have they got him just to play down back, James Frawley?
Well, if they have,
I think so.
I think he's a swing man. Jared Rivers was a swing man as well. He's a great intercept player, we know. But I think under Paul Roos, Frawley was really good in the forward line. It's tough playing in the forward line at Melbourne.
Talking about tough and the length of games, Mickey Malthouse's press conference on Friday night was interesting for lots of reasons, not just his skirmish with Mark Stevens. One of the things he said, how can we have a game that's prescribed to run for 80 minutes and it goes for 120, which is 50% longer? I think he made a good point about that.
When was the game prescribed to go for 80 minutes?
Isn't it 420s plus time on?
Plus time on.
Yeah.
So it was never meant to be 80 minutes.
Well, it is. That's the fun.
It's plus time on for a reason. And we know that there's a considerable amount of time on in each quarter.
I'm open to the argument that it's too long.
What would you bring it back to?
Well, I'm not sure the practical implementation of 4 by 20. Have a look at this. There's the times that some of the games.
So it was the 7th longest game of the season.
Yeah. But when we're up to 132, I know you're right about the extra time is fixed in, but it is an 80-minute game.
It's never been an 80-minute game.
4 by 20, that's what it says.
It's never, ever been an 80-minute game.
It's 4 by 20 plus time on. Right?
Yeah, plus time on.
Yeah.
You're equating plus time on to be 0.
Do you think, given what the players' attitude to this is about the necessity for buys, that we'd be better off perhaps reducing the duration of each game?
Players that love a shorter game, they'd love to play every second week.
No, they wouldn't. No, that's not true.
They
wouldn't love to play every second week. They'd like a shorter game. Well, what about you? You're the fitness man here.
Well, I just think it's been as it has been for a long time. I don't think
it's too long. That's not the answer, Jared. It's been like that.
It's not the answer you wanted. That's the answer I like.
It's not the answer that because it's been like that for a long time, we stick with it.
Well, I haven't got a problem with the length of the game.
You're getting no support here, Mike.
I haven't got a problem with it.
Well, sorry, Mick, you're on your own on this.
4 on the interchange bench. If you wanted to tighten it up.
That's changed.
If you
we didn't have that for a long time.
If you want to tighten it up, just tighten up the whistles and the stoppages. Get rid of a few of the stoppages and it'll play a lot quicker. Can Brady Franklin, Mike, win the Brownlow medal?
Yes, he can, Jared. I tell you what, he can do 2 things. He can win the Brownlow. He can be the first player in 90 years to play in premiership teams at different clubs in successive years.
90 years? Who was the last player?
I saw this kid come into the system, Tommy Fitzmaurice. I knew he was going to be a player, and he played in premierships in 24 and 25. But to the Brownlow question, look, I think he can. no one. I mean, when you played, it's an interesting. There is a comparison between you and him. You kicked.
I don't think so.
No, but you kicked 135 goals one year, correct? And got 18 votes.
Buddy's a better driver than Jason.
But Buddy is more flamboyant than this bloke.
But you've got to.
He's more noticeable.
You've got to get 25 plus votes to win it.
Well, so
maybe not this year. Maybe because there's a couple of the guns out.
Well, I tell you what, Josh Kennedy's going to take a lot of votes off him. He's another outstanding.
But they're on top of the ladder, so they're going to get a lot of votes.
Yeah, but if he's not getting all the threes, you can't win it.
You don't think? Do you think he's in contention?
I'd be surprised if he's right at the point. I think he'll poll well, but I'd be surprised if he's right up there.
Mike, our show's not going any longer. We've got to take a break. We'll be back with Mike's Bad Minute straight after this.
Brisbane St Kilda at the Gabba, the St Kilda captain with a broken collarbone. Retrospect, right or wrong thing to do?
Wrong thing to do. Shouldn't have done it. We were just so driven to win and succeed at whatever cost. We won the game. Nick going off the field helped us win that game.
You're a coach now.
Yeah.
If one of your players did it, what would you say to him?
I'd be disappointed. I'd just say that it's not in the spirit of the game.
Did Lee have a view about it?
He didn't say anything afterwards, but I think he would have been quietly happy. He would have been that's my thoughts.
Looking forward to open night with Mel Michael. He was a star player for a long, long time, Mel.
3 flags, Jared.
Yeah, not many players can boast 3 flags.
Not when they've been let go by their original club.
That's right.
Did you ask him about the best rush behind ever? The one where he kicked a torp about 60 metres through his own goal.
Actually, it was 12 metres, James.
News just coming to hand, fellas. We have just been told in the ad break that Essendon have decided that they'll be entering into no plea bargaining or any deals with Asada if such a deal was placed forward along the same lines as Cronulla, which I'm not surprised at.
Well, the key premise to the Cronulla deal was they had to put up their hand and admit guilt. And I think Essendon have been up front in saying there's no admission of guilt here. They don't believe they've done anything predominantly wrong.
Yeah,
and they won't be putting up their hand. No.
More of that, no doubt, on Fox Footy over the next few days. Mike, you're mad this time, and I think you are genuinely disappointed.
Well, I am, Jared, and I want to talk to you. Jace, you've been very complimentary about Justin Leppich's job in Brisbane, and we share that view.
I think he's done a great job.
But too many of his players haven't gone along with him. Now, this is the most sensitive of the established markets in the competition. The last 2 games at the Gabba by this team, their last 2 for the year, have produced losses by a total of 160 points. That's not acceptable. They're better than that.
Well, the problem is some of their really good performances have been away from home.
Yeah.
And they need to be doing the really good things at the Gabba to draw people. That's where they've got to draw people back.
And I mean, they were playing attacking footing. You see that rubbish we saw before, 10 possessions, and then they give it up and Firrito kick an easy goal. So I know you can't just turn it on when you want to, but they need to be mindful of what they've got to do at the Gabba.
It's a little bit disappointing, obviously, to finish the season that way. They've got some young bodies, but they have set a standard, and I think we've all jumped on board the standard. The other one in a market that's even more sensitive, Mike, with the GWS, and they'll rue that. That was a genuine opportunity to go to their market and say, we've just knocked off the Pies. We know there were certain circumstances. A big loss given the circumstances.
Can you imagine the impetus over summer if you've just beaten Collingwood in your last game at home?
Yeah, it'd be a good way to finish off the season, wouldn't it?
So many highlights for them. Hoskin Elliott, I mean, he is the gifted one up there. He put them in front with a brilliant goal and they weren't able to finish. Need a few more leaders. Mike, you've been good again tonight. You haven't fought back as much as I thought you might have. Jason, look forward to your company again next week. Thanks for your company. We'll see you next week on The Couch.